Hello, everyone. Welcome to Generation Dan, where Manny Man does Dan. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. I'm Atlas Novak. I'm your millennial.
I'm Dino, the genetic marvel. I'm your Gen Xer.
Caleb isn't here today because we're filming this over the holidays. But our guest today, you may know him from Manny Man Does History on YouTube. It's John D Ruddy, everybody.
Hello, folks. How are we doing today?
Fantastic.
Oh, good.
Not so good. I unfortunately have no Wi-Fi because I just moved into a new apartment and the router doesn't work, and my computer ran out of Wi-Fi hotspot. So
rookie mistake. I've been shocked to hear how bad the internet is in LA. You know, of all the places, I would have imagined LA would have been like the nexus of internet hubness, but apparently not.
No, it's mostly just a hub of prostitution and drugs, right, Atlas?
Yeah.
More or less, yeah. That's New York, though. If you want more prostitution,
you'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Oh my God, for real. That's a very good Alec Guinness impression.
That is.
Oh, thank you.
That makes sense, though. It's not going to be the Greek and the Whitey that's going to be able to do it right. Like,
yeah.
Let's be honest. So we are talking about New Year's and things related to New Year's because that's when this is, not when it's coming out, but when we're recording. So that's always fun.
Fine, sucks for you. Whatever.
You know what?
I guess I could shuffle them around, right? Like, just put this...
It doesn't make a difference.
Okay, whatever.
Listen,
fine.
People want to listen because it's enjoyable. And if anything, we're going to look back and say, man, do you remember how good it was this New Year's? And because by the time this comes out, the entire world will have collapsed on its economic system and everyone will be fending for themselves. So, if anything, this is a look back to better times, right?
Yep. But... Before we really get into that, we have some questions for John. So that first one.
Was I supposed to memorize the questions?
No. He's going to put them up on the screen here.
Okay, Here you go. Embarrassing song on your playlist.
Okay, so the embarrassing song on my playlist, it's more so an embarrassing playlist in itself.
Oh.
And that is Neil Cicierrega's Mouth Moods. Have you listened?
No. What is that?
Are you aware of Neil Cicierrega?
No.
So, a lot of people don't realize they know Neil Cicierrega until you start listing some of his works. Do you know Snape, Severus, Snape?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, that's Neil Cicierrega. Also, this is the ultimate showdown of ultimate
destiny. Yeah.
Yep, that's Neil Cicierrega. He made that when he was like 16. And,
really?
Yeah. So he has a quadrilogy now of concept albums, parody albums, called. Well, the first one was. You see, I discovered them all at once, so I always forget which ones are which. But essentially, the first one, he started mixing Smash Mouth into any song.
Love it.
So you've got John Lennon's Imagine. So you imagine the piano of ding 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 as a somebody wants and it is a thing of almost everybody's reaction to it. Almost everybody's reaction to it is, this is god awful. I cannot listen to this. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
And some of the he remixed because then he moved beyond Smash Mouth. In fact, his next album was Mouth Silence. So, you know, there was no Smash Mouth in it, although I think he sent in a little cameo in and around there. But like there's one where he takes Ghostbusters and completely remixes it into some other bizarre weird riff. So it's like dum 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 dum, and then the lyrics, he like rearranges the lyrics. So it's like, you know, if there's something weird sleeping in your bed, let me tell you something, you know, and all this kind of. It's hilarious. But I think my favorite out of them is quite possibly, it's called Party Rangers, which I don't actually think is included on the albums as like a bonus track, but still. And it is a mashup of Miley Cyrus Party in the USA to the instrumentation of Power Rangers.
Oh my god.
It is phenomenal. Now it's difficult to emulate because obviously I can't sing the lyrics but if you imagine hopped in the cabin NAX with a dream and a cardigan. Welcome to the land of statement says, whoa, am I gonna fade it? Oh, it is so good. But yeah, that would probably be my number one of the guilty pleasures. As soon as that comes on, because the thing is, I mean, I'm not a fan of Party in the USA. I am a massive fan of Power Rangers, but listening to the Power Rangers theme full blast in the car, that's a little bit too much. It's a little bit too far for me, you know. But if I'm sitting there going, so I put my hands up to play my song, butterfly but in my head like, yeah, you know, and it's oh, it's so good. It's so good.
Wow. I just figured out what I'm going to do this afternoon. Listen,
I know, right?
Nonstop, and I'm going to play it loud enough so my wife can hear it everywhere.
Yes.
That seems like a good use of my time. Absolutely. And
coming up next week on Generation Dan, how Dino got divorced. And
oh, it'll totally get you divorced. I have to listen to it very quietly when my wife is about. She's like, no.
Oh, I'm not. No. I'm number one. I'm not signing anything. Number two, they're all small in my household, so they don't have a forklift to take me out of here. So that's fine. Yeah, bring it. Let's do this.
It's gonna be like Gilbert Grape's mom at the end of the movie.
Listen, number one, I'm not that big. Okay, I can still get through doors. I've had issues, but that's not the point. And ultimately, though, the funny thing is that's actually a growing trend where a lot of extremely popular songs are being mixed together. So I find it hilarious that he would go so far. I'm definitely Googling that. And,
yeah, well, because you see, what's really good is sometimes like he'll thematically link songs. So he'll take all sorts of songs where it's just like all kind of doobie-doos or wahs and kind of stuff like that. So he takes like Annie Lennox, No More I Love Yous, with what do you call it? So it's like
awesome,
and all this kind of stuff, and it's very entertaining.
I can imagine.
Yeah,
we have a lost Atlas, so I'm just going to log this. We'll wait for him because we're recording the whole time, so it's not a big deal.
No, we've lost our Atlas. We're going to get lost in the globe without our Atlas.
I don't think people who listen to podcasts know how to use an Atlas, sir. Of course, they're beautiful. Yeah, but you're foreign. It's not the same, right? Like me, I'm Greek, right? My parents are both Greek. They came to Canada, so I'm first generation born in Canada. So for me, I'm like, yeah, like we were talking before. I'm like driving in Greece. I've driven in Paris. I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal. Other white folks from Canada, when they go, they're like, how do you drive in this? I'm like, you just learn, you just figure it out, right?
Go for it.
But that's the difference, right? Whereas especially in America, it's perplexing where, like we were talking, so you're in Northern Ireland, you said, right?
The north of
Ireland. North of Ireland. My
Northern Ireland. In the Republic of Ireland.
So, listen, yeah, no, that's my bad, and I apologize for that greatly because, I'm a heathen, right?
You're basically America. It's okay.
It's no. Listen, hey, I'm more Greek than anything.
Sure, okay? Sure.
Listen, I use centimeters, okay? Just get out of here. No. Yeah. But that's the funny thing is that is so often, especially in the States, like people they will be born, grow up, and die in the same town, have never left and stuff. I'm like, whereas the UK, I'm like, that was the great part. Like when I go to Greece, I'm like, we'll go to the UK or we'll go to France and then hop over, like just spend a couple days because I'm like, number one, for me, Greece is cheap. I have a place there. Not a big deal. Mm-hmm. Whereas the UK, I even had this as a wager with my wife. I said, we're going to be in London for 3 days. Mm-hmm. We're going to be in Greece for 2 weeks. I said, you pay for the hotel in London. I'm going to pay for the hotel in Greece and we'll see who comes out ahead. She paid an extra like $500. I'm like,
oh yeah. Oh,
yeah,
easy.
That's how that works.
Easy. Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Welcome back, Atlas.
Oh my God. I have no idea what's going on with, like it said, your phone is getting warm. And I was like, okay. And then that was it.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Nice.
So
technology is both the crutch and enabler of these times, right?
That's what you get for being in California. Your phone's overheating.
Fine, fuck you guys.
Hey, man. That's, listen, global warming is predominantly in hot areas, so yeah, it's on you, Atlas.
Yeah.
I mean, it's affecting everybody with like the sea level changes and stuff like that too.
Yeah.
So like,
What am I-
whatever.
I saw like a map of what California might look like if the ice caps melt completely, and all the parts of LA are just renamed, like water-related stuff. So like straight out of Compton, stuff like that.
Oh no.
So yeah, probably.
Yeah, because LA is so flat too, so it's all just.
Yeah,
if,
I mean,
if it were to flood, it would flood.
well, LA isn't that flat. It says you start getting out of the city, you get into more like mountainous areas. But yeah,
I actually found it amazing just how it was something I did not fathom until I went to LA was how massive the city is. It is.
Yeah, it's like 8 towns crammed together.
Oh, like, well, there's a brilliant website. I love it. It's called True Size, which is not as dirty as it sounds. It is
right.
It's a map of the world, but
Yeah.
you know the way on a flat surface, sizes
Right.
can be distorted. So
Yeah.
what it does is you can type in a country's name, and you can drag it across the world's map. But as it goes further away from the equator, it gets bigger, or it gets smaller. So you get a better idea of comparing two countries. And so I took Ireland and I dragged it over to California. First of all, you can fit Ireland between LA and San Francisco,
Wow.
which is hilarious. But yeah, with LA alone. So my home county is Donegal, up in the northwest, and most of it wasn't until I saw LA overlaid on top of Donegal that I fathomed just how huge the city was. I was like, oh my god! So from Long Beach up to Hollywood is like Ballyshannon up to Milford, which is deep cuts for any Donegal geography people out there. But it's a long distance. It's a long distance.
Right.
Like, oh my god.
Oh man,
That's like for in most European countries, if you drive 3 hours in any direction, you're going to end up in a completely new country with its own history and geography. If I drive 3 hours in any direction, I'm going to see like that guy. It's all the same shit.
If you're driving 3 hours in any direction, you may land in the ocean if you're in
That's
Ireland.
true. You might. Yeah.
Also issue. Yeah.
Although technically I live right beside another country, although that's a contentious issue with Northern Ireland and the border.
Yeah, don't watch his video on the Easter Rising for more details.
Yeah. Plug. I can literally see Northern Ireland from my house.
Take that, Sir Palin.
Yeah, I know.
Did we get to the second question when I dropped out of the broadcast? Or
No. I just logged the time and we just kept on talking about random stuff.
All right. Second question.
I'm an adult. You can't stop me. So, what is something that you embellish, such as like having breakfast for dinner or cake for breakfast, something like that?
I mean, I certainly have had cake for breakfast.
All of us as well.
I'm pretty sure I've had an entire box of Maltesers for breakfast. Do you get Maltesers in North America?
Yes. So
I don't think I do.
You're talking about the Maltesers where it's like the malted covered in chocolate, right?
Yes. Chocolate,
okay.
yeah.
Yes. For Atlas, they may be Whoppers.
Okay, your candy sucks in America, or your chocolate sucks in America.
Chocolate sucks, definitely,
and Canada.
Hey, calm down there, buddy.
Okay, there, buddy. I'm not your pal friend.
Yeah, my friend.
Yeah. Actually, speaking of Canada, so I'm the town that I am from in Donegal is Letterkenny.
Oh.
Yeah, like that's so. Anytime you see Letterkenny on the internet, and it's like the show Letterkenny, I'm like, that's where we're from.
Yeah,
we're the old world Letterkenny. You can cross feet and cross fuck off. couple of hockey players came out to the produce stand the other day. Anyway, so what do? I quote Letterkenny. That's what I do because I'm an adult.
Yes.
No, I buy video games when I can. But particularly, I remembered kind of the moment where I was in a retro video game shop and I saw all of the games that I always wanted to buy when I was a kid, but
Right.
you know, I couldn't. And I was like, that's Banjo-Tooie. I've wanted to play that game since I was 11 years old. And now I can because I'm a grown-up with grown-up money. I'm going to buy Banjo-Tooie. But also the reason why I didn't buy Banjo-Tooie was because I didn't have an expansion pack for the N64. I'm going to buy one of those too. Yes! Buy an expansion pack. And you know what? I'm going to buy 2 other controllers. Now I've got 4 controllers for my N64. So I've got I'm going to buy Perfect Dark because I've now got the expansion pack. I can play Perfect Dark too. 4-player Perfect Dark, 4-player GoldenEye, 4-player Mario Kart. Boom. I'm a grown-up, motherfuckers.
That's like the most confidence I've seen someone answer that question. They're like, "Oh, I don't know." Well,
It's valid though. It's valid.
Yeah, no, that's definitely valid for sure.
I got a bunch of they released a new emulator for the original Super Nintendo or the Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES.
Ooh, yes.
And the funny thing is, it's just a box, but they gave you like gray stickers, so it looks like it.
Yes.
But at the same time, I'm like, I have another one that's got like 9,000 games. Where I'm like, I have Metal Slug. I have like the coolest. I have essentially everything up until, let's say, TurboGrafx 16 or Neo Geo level. Everything before that, I got it. Everything, like across games, I don't even remember. And I'm like, I play like 3 of them. And I'm like, on a 65-inch screen. So the graphics are ridiculously horrible. But I'm like, this is the greatest moment of my life right now. So
this is wonderful. It's amazing. Neo Geo has a very special place in my heart for me. In that, so growing up in Letterkenny, there was an arcade. But it was a kind of a dodgy place. Like it was
100%.
It wasn't just video games, but it was also like slot machines and stuff. And
slot machines. That's awesome.
Yeah. We got different gambling laws in Ireland, so there was always just that kind of thing of no, we don't go in there. But there was one place that it was an old bowling alley. It's since closed down, but it had one arcade machine there. And actually, they had Afterburner very briefly, but I never got to go on it. But it was Bubble Bobble too. But I remember because I was so young, I didn't have any money on my own. I didn't have any money, so I wasn't able to play it myself. And I couldn't go up and ask mum for 50p to play it. And so I would watch it on repeat. I would watch the demo on repeat and would know the sound effects off by heart. So anytime I see Neo Geo and the ding 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 ding, that just brings me back to wanting to play Bubble Bobble on an arcade machine.
Oh yeah.
Fun.
Well, I have friends who have bought arcade machines, like the full sized, and I'm like,
cabinet.
Yeah, and you're just like, I get it. I absolutely get it, but at the same time, it's like, I'm fat. I'm gonna sit down and play these games. So I'm like, I'm not, not interested. But it's. I remember on that. So I've told stories on this podcast about how the only arcades we had were usually in a pool hall. And a pool hall, similarly, you're like, we couldn't gamble and stuff, but dodgy things happened there. And my dad found us once. I was 9 years old. It did not go well. I peed my pants. It's a whole thing. I have a story about it. But but I remember going on a cruise where I'm like, it was before cruises became really cool. So they had gambling and stuff, and they had one room that had arcade machines, and we would play Strider, and it was a nickel. And I'm like, Strider was just like, it was like Contra, kind of, but never been able to find it. So same thing where you're saying going, we would run out of money and then go, all right, we're just going to watch it. We're just going to watch it play and that kind of stuff. But yeah, that is pretty hilarious.
Nice.
I remember my family went on a cruise to Alaska when I was like 8 or 9, and they had a golden tea machine on the boat. You know, the one with the wheel where you got to like roll it. Yeah. Yeah, my dad got ridiculously good at that game. Like, I remember there was this one time where he goes up and there's a dog leg where it's like a 90-degree turn. And he's like, maybe if I pull it back one way and roll it the other way, it'll do it. And then it did. And he was like, yeah. I'm like, Dad, you're 50. So,
Yeah.
good for you, I guess.
Every young person who's seen that game at an arcade has played it once and then go, oh, this is shit. I don't want to play this.
Yeah.
It's fun. And then you're older and going, oh, you can play golf on. I remember that game. Yeah. And then you realize you're like, oh, now I'm old. That's it.
Yeah, exactly.
On that note, our third question is, what do you mean I'm an adult? So, John, this is a time when you felt you're like, someone turned to you as in you're in charge as the adult and you're like, oh, whoa, me? I don't think so. Do you have anything like that?
So about 10 years ago, this is insane now, but it was now 10 years ago. I was working as a youth worker. And so I was working with teenagers, and it was funny because, it seemed like not much time before I was the teenager going off on trips and, like going international exchanges and stuff.
Fair.
And then I was... then all of a sudden I was working for them as a youth development officer. It was a lot of fun. We organized loads of different programs and like media groups and also internet safety things and all of that. It was really, really fun. I loved it. But one of the tasks was we went to Germany on a youth exchange, and I brought 5 teenagers. And there were teenagers coming from all over Europe. They were coming from the UK, coming from France, Italy, Germany, of course, Croatia, Czech Republic, Slovakia, and Poland. So loads of different places. And I was just sitting there going, oh my God. Like once I actually got there, because, the gang of teenagers that I do, because there was a whole interview process, of why should I, why should you be the one to go on this trip? And they were all very professional, and they were all really well behaved, and they helped out with all the fundraising and all of that. And I'm actually still friends with 1 or 2 of them now as adults, because there's like 5 years between us, but which is hilarious. No, when we actually got there, and once we actually got to the hostel, it was just like letting cats out of the bag. And all of a sudden I was just like, where did my responsible teenagers go? All of a sudden they were running off with all of these other teenagers from all these exotic teenagers from all over Europe. And I was just like, oh my God, it was the most stressful 10 days of my life, where I would go to bed thinking, what do they do? What are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? What are they doing? I would wake up, what do they do? What do they do? What do they do? What do they do? Oh my God. And now, I mean, in their defense, they were fine. And we got to the end of the 10 days and it was fine. And it was a lot of fun. And we represented the Donegal Youth Service really well. But it was so stressful because I was 23, and it was because most of the youth leaders who were there were older. They were kind of 40s plus mostly, and so I was just there, and I was just like, oh my God, I am the responsible adult here, and I have to really keep my head screwed in and be the boring one who's going, lads, come on, you can't be hanging off the ceiling from that. Come on, seriously. Like, we were in the European Parliament.
Sorry.
That's
never a good start if it was we were in the European Parliament.
We're in the European Parliament, and the English teens, they were a bad influence on my gang. That was the only reason.
English are the worst. That's fair.
I know, right? And they were giving each other. They were sitting on each other's shoulders, walking around, right. And I was just like, "Oh my God, seriously!" Just at the end of the tour. I actually had to give them a talking down. I kind of going, I am so embarrassed right now. Like, of all the groups in there, what was that, guys? Come on, seriously. Like, we're representing our organization here, and you're in there giving piggy banks in the European Parliament. I mean, I am all over that. Like, seriously, guys. Like, like right now we're supposed to be going across Brussels. I'm supposed to be trusting you to go off yourselves, but right now I'm sitting there going, I mean, should I be worried about what you're going to do when I'm not there? Like, come on, guys. But at the end of the day, it was fine. It was fine. It was a learning experience for us all. Yeah, that was the moment where I realized, I'm the responsible adult. Oh my.
That is fantastic. And like, in all honesty, as long as everyone came home still not pregnant, you're good.
Exactly.
That's the one. Like, you start to realize as an adult, you're like the crazy things adults say, which are completely false, just to keep you from doing crazy shit, right? Like, where everyone's like, "Hey, no, we're supposed to be setting an example." Listen, the only day that everywhere wears a tie at work is when everyone knows there's a tour coming, so you got to wear a tie to give that impression. You're going, here's an idea. How about everybody stop being full of shit and just, you know what? Hey, let's just not be horrible people, and we'll run with that. That's is that so bad?
Well,
Atlas thinks I'm horrible, by the way.
I think the chief problem.
No, that's not all the way true.
I think the chief problem was that I was only about 6 years. I think it had been 6 years since I had been on one of these youth exchanges.
Yeah.
So all I could think of was,
you came home pregnant, didn't you?
I know, right? All I could think of was, oh my God, I hope they're not doing what we were doing.
Listen, you can just pray. You're like, hey, what happens in European Parliament stays in European Parliament.
Yeah.
That's just
yeah. And now that they're all adults, I have also heard what actually went down, and I was like, yeah, I knew you were doing that. These bastards. Did you know how stressed out I was? And they're like, because they're now like 25, and they're like, yeah, we're sorry, we were dicks. And I'm like, yeah, you were. But anyway, we had a fun, formative time, so it's all good.
Well, that's the thing is, you can't tell kids, be like, listen, guys, I trust you guys. I know you're going to get up to tomfoolery, but remember, no one comes home pregnant. Very important for the rest of your life. This is a key moment. Because if you say that, number one, 100% someone's getting pregnant. There's no question with that.
Definitely.
Right? You can't, and that's why it's like you have to have this overcompensation. That's a great story, John. Honestly, like that was fantastic. I have to admit, I really appreciate that. But like it's hilarious now as an adult. Like I remember in school, I caught a teacher smoking on school property because it was after hours, and I was like, oh, he's like, listen, man, okay, fuck it, who cares? Just don't tell anybody. I'm like, hey, man, just don't be a dick to me, and I won't be a dick to you. It's fair, right? But it was like, I also look like this in grade 9, which I was 15 years old. So
you had a beard in grade 9?
It was a rough time. And more hair.
You had a peppered beard?
I'll find you a picture, trust me. And people are going, oh, yeah, that makes sense that you look terrible.
He's not completely lying. That's the crazy part.
No. It's the only reason I didn't have a beard was because I was religious and there was no beard. So after that, I'm like, yeah, no, always a beard. I just look so much better. Oh, and the best part is when I would go back to Greece, I would always grow out a beard. And when I came back, I would shave. So while in Greece, everyone would be like, hey, you trained to be a priest? And I'm like, number one, fuck you. Number two, I look way better than a priest, so no. It's the worst.
Good old Orthodox Church.
Well, they try.
They have the coolest churches, though. Like, the designs of their churches are so cool. Atlas, are you? Like,
you all right there, Atlas? Phone? It sounds like you're just beeping.
Yeah.
Oh, that's weird. No, I'm fine. I can hear you guys.
All right, stop pressing buttons, you bastard. This is the best that, like, Atlas is the most tech savvy between me and him.
Hilarious.
But so it's like, it's only fair.
Yeah.
This is karma.
He's typing in Morse code. It's like YYZ.
Sink the Bismarck. Sink the Bismarck. Sink the Bismarck.
Actually, when I was passing through Toronto, I was wonderfully impressed to discover where Russia's YYZ comes from, and it's Toronto Airport.
Yeah, it is.
I was like, that's cool. That's cool. But then what didn't help was throughout my trip through Toronto Airport, all that was in my head was which isn't a bad complaint until you reach the 4th hour of
I won't be shamed, and Canada will stand up for itself, sir.
Yeah.
I'm just a big Rush fan, so that's
Atlas consistently will make Rush references, and I'm like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but all right, Rush, man, cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Are you a Rush fan too, or was it just the YYZ thing?
I wouldn't call myself a Rush fan, but I would certainly enjoy Rush. But although I was chatting to a guy in Canada, and he worked on the radio, and Spirit of Radio. But I was saying, one of my friends in Letterkenny is the biggest Rush fan in the world, and he said to me, every Rush fan is the biggest Rush fan in the world. I was like, that is so true.
That is true.
Shout out to Dino.
That's fantastic.
Glittering prizes and endless compromises shatter the illusion of integrity. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Such a dork. Hey,
I'm sorry. This is kind of okay. So I'm a huge history nerd, and I like watching history YouTubers. John is one of those history YouTubers. Andy's kind of sort of a Rush fan. This is like we're almost going for the hat trick here.
Just so you know, John, behind that screen, Atlas is fully erect. That's how that's going.
There we go.
I'm wearing sweatpants.
Don't give us the picture. Come on. So here's a question for you, John. So why history? What's the whole drive behind that? Explain.
Long story short, I thought I was boring as fucking secondary school, and so
Agreed.
I wanted to make it more interesting. That's the simple answer. Yeah, I loved it when I was in elementary school, as you call it, but primary school as we call it here, and then secondary school is high school. But yeah, I always found there was this really awkward moment in history books where it went from cool, brightly colored illustrations into boring ass black and white photographs.
Yes.
And I just found that it just did nothing for me. I'm a visual thinker, and I was just like, ugh. You know, everything just turned to black and white, and I was just like, ugh, didn't like it. And so once I then went on in university to train as a primary school teacher. And so it was through teaching history that I kind of rediscovered my love of history and, discovering more topics and just going, this is amazing. And funnily enough, bizarrely enough, bringing it back around, at that youth exchange over in Germany, yeah, I know, I was just making the link in my head. That was the primordial prototype of Manny Man Does History, because we were all asked to do a presentation on our countries and where we came from. And so my teenagers, they all came up with kind of stuff about Letterkenny and stuff. And they're like, John, you're good with history. Do you want to do a wee thing on Irish history? I was like, yeah. And so I did a PowerPoint presentation just with like stock photos from the internet. Right. And it was, first we had the Stone Age, then we had the Bronze Age, then we, the Iron Age, and then the Vikings came, and then, and all that kind of stuff. And then the Normans came. And it was from that I was kind of like, this would actually make a pretty cool video.
Yeah. And
so that was 2012, not 2112, 2012. And so it was kind of from there that idea was kind of floating about in my head. And I already had the character of Manny Man. I'd been drawing Manny Man since I was about 14 years old. In the sides of my copybooks and textbooks, trying to make.
And that's the little dude with the big eyes, right?
That's the little dude with the big eyes. Yeah, he's quick to draw. He's very his expressions are so easy to read, and he doesn't have hands and feet, which makes him so quick to draw. So when it came to making a video about, because YouTube was this now bigger and bigger thing, and I was watching stuff like Angry Video Game Nerd and Early Lindsay Ellis on YouTube and kind of things like that, and going, this is awesome, I want to do this. And I was like, right, well, how will I do this? What will be my format? And so I decided to pick the most labor-intensive medium possible for YouTube, and that is drawing every single friggin' picture.
Yeah. Well, because you'll do this thing where every little frame you'll have a little visual joke or someone saying something where I have to go back and pause and read everything before getting on with whatever it is you're talking about.
And that was by design, because some people, kind of complain, going, "Oh my god, it's going too fast! I can't read all the little jokes." I was like, "That's the point. You go back and kind of see the little, where you're like, wait, what did he just say?" I actually kind of got that was slightly inspired, actually not slightly, very, very much inspired by. I don't know, I think he is still making videos. Zero Punctuation.
No.
Yahtzee. He was creating their video game reviews for The Escapist. But he was making videos around that time, and his animation style is somewhat similar to what the Manny Man animation style was. Because, I'm not an animator, and at the time I did all of the illustrations by hand in real life on actual paper with markers, and you can tell in those early videos in particular. So I kept it simple, and I kept the animation style simple. So it's not full 24 frames or even 18 frames. It's hands down, hands up. But yeah, no. So and it worked for that, and it worked for that format. And I kind of thought, this is something that if I did Irish history, this is something that could potentially go viral around Ireland. And so I did it, and I put it up, and it went viral around Ireland. It was being shared on different sites like joe.ie, which is a big one in Ireland for social media sharing and stuff. And I was like, this is cool. This is exciting. And then I thought, maybe if I did one of more international interest, then I could actually get something a bit more. It could go viral around the world.
Of course.
And so it was then, and that was early 2014. And so I thought, well, naturally, it's a good idea because we're about to hit the centenary of the beginning of World War One. And so I did a video about World War One, and off it went. And that it was from there that I got that kind of initial build of subscribers, and then off the back of that, I did World War II, and then I did Cold War, and so those are still my most watched videos. Like, they're sitting on 3.5, 4 million, and I think Cold War is over 5 million views.
Awesome.
And people still go back and watch those. I have remastered some of them since, but not Cold War yet. So it's still kind of the highest earner. Or the highest viewership. But yeah, so it was kind of just from there that I was like, oh, I guess I'm a YouTuber now. Like, it was funny, and I think a lot of YouTubers kind of find this where they kind of don't go into it like with a strategy of, I am going to go into this and become a YouTuber. It's like, I'll go into this, see what happens. And it wasn't until even a couple of years into it where I was like, yeah, I suppose I'm a YouTuber. And so, yeah, it's been an interesting journey, and just kind of seeing how, oh, by the way, you might be able to hear the lovely rain on my roof, my hot tin roof, on my cold tin roof. Yeah, it has been a bizarre journey of successes and wanting to do better, and constantly comparing myself to others. And the most hateful one is like when you've been doing something for years, and you see someone else who like started during the pandemic, and they have more subscribers than you, and you're just like, oh, you
son of a bitch.
And I mean, and now, don't get me wrong, absolutely fair play to them, and
Sure.
and some folks have created some absolutely fantastic content. Like Khadija Mbo has put out some fantastic content, and she's only been doing it for like, I think, a year or maybe over a year now. But like, she started in the pandemic. Oh, such good work. But like, she has more subscribers than me now, and I'm just like, cool, I've been doing this for 8 years. but hey,
You're preaching to the choir there, John. You're preaching to the choir.
I know, right?
Well, this is the funny thing is that I always find it interesting is that every time I've heard anyone go like, "Oh, I want to trick the algorithm and stuff," you're like, "Here's an idea. Just make something you're passionate about and let it ride. It's
Mhm.
my passion that will feed this.
Exactly.
Not, hey, I'm gonna scam the. Listen, number one, most of us aren't smart enough to scam the algorithm. That's why
Mhm.
it's an algorithm, and we don't actually know how it works. It's, just do something
Otherwise,
you're
people
passionate
would
about.
be spamming the
Well,
algorithm.
that's why I'm like, listen, the algorithm's there to protect the world against your garbage content. That's
Yeah.
why I'm like, so build something that you enjoy, build something you're passionate about, because that will find other people's passion. They'll go, you know what?
Mhm.
I want, like, for me, I love history. From the time, let's see, it was in 2006, 2007, maybe, where
Mhm.
it was the first time I went to Asia.
Mhm.
And I knew a lot about World War One. I did not, or World War II. I did not know a lot about World War II in Asia, and that is
Yeah.
a whole other history
Mhm.
that a lot of
Yeah.
people don't realize.
Yeah.
And I learned about that, and that was actually just before I met my wife,
Yeah.
which this is coming up on 20 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But I'm like, oh, there's a whole history here that we're not told about. So on that point, like for yourself, I agree with
Mhm.
what you said, where it's like history has forcibly been taught boring, which
Yes.
is it drives me crazy, because history doesn't just happen. There's a whole story to it. There are a series of events that link together that
Mhm.
you can only see after the fact. You don't know how it's
Exactly.
going to play out.
Yeah.
So now for yourself, with history being so dictated by the victors over the last
Yes.
100 years,
Absolutely.
how do you find that with regards to working through all of that information? Like, do you just try and find out the truth, or is it a story you're trying to tell? Like, where is your starting point for the
Mhm.
process?
Well, that's a great question.
I'm not just a pretty face, John.
Yeah. I suppose I try to keep things I try to keep things as balanced as I can.
Fair.
Like say with the Irish history video, like
Yeah.
there was a massacre in 1641 where loads of Catholics massacred a whole pile of Protestants in what is now Northern Ireland,
Right.
and that's something that can often be left out
Of course.
because only a couple of years after that, Oliver Cromwell comes over to Ireland and kills loads of people and kicks all the Catholics off their land. And, the 1641 massacre can sometimes be forgotten about. And it's just like Oliver Cromwell came over here and just killed loads of people. So we hate him for, in fairness, Oliver Cromwell is still a bad word in Irish history.
Fair.
But yeah, although, and I try to avoid recent stuff because
That's fair. That's fair.
However, I did a video about the presidents of the United States, from George Washington all the way up to Mr. Joe Biden, and so that guy who came just before Joe Biden. I couldn't. Actually, not.
Yeah.
I did hold myself back. Like, this is
Okay.
the funny thing. I did hold myself back, and
Still
still
a plethora of material.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Like the comment section still is like, oh my god, once you got to Trump, oh, it just got so biased. I was like,
well, he sucks, so
yeah.
No, but this is the thing: is presidents haven't been great for a long time.
Yes.
So it's not, and this is the thing: is there's a lot of information that was kept out of the spotlight for a very long time,
Yeah.
and in very recent history, people said, "Hey, you know what? Let's put the spotlight directly on everything." And
Yeah.
that changes a lot of perspectives.
Because because like for the earlier videos or for the earlier presidents, like I pointed out which ones owned slaves while they were in office.
Yeah.
And it was like Thomas Jefferson owned 600 people while he was in office, and like some people were even kind of bumping up against that, going, "Why are you pointing that out?" I was like, "Why not?"
It's history,
It's
not choosing what to hear. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
like
fair.
and like going up to Obama, like I like Obama, but
Sure.
he is also a neoliberal who shells out to the corporations, and
Just like Bill Clinton,
just like Bill Clinton,
Yeah.
and so and like I point those things out, and like the drone campaigns and things like that I do point out in the videos, but it's just so funny that I think sometimes you're only looking out for what you want to hear.
Right.
And so unless you go on an out and out tirade against Obama, then it's just like, oh, this is biased. He said something good about Obama and he said nothing but bad things about Trump. I was like, the closest that I could get to saying something good about Trump, and I tried, I genuinely tried, was that the whole thing with North Korea, where
first president to actually have a meeting.
First president to actually have a meeting, and the whole kind of what is it, madman doctrine that Nixon tried during Vietnam. It seems to have worked, and Kim Jong Un did seem to
cool down. Let's say a little bit, just to calm his seals.
Like the strong man did actually seem to work in that area.
The bravado and the it's a different type of engagement, right?
Yeah.
So it's something we're not used to either.
Yeah, and so I point that out. I mean, I could have been maybe clearer, but at the same time, like the last 10 minutes was just Trump, and I was just like, no, like he sucks, and he's not and not only that, but like while I was because I was trying to make it I was literally making it this time last year and trying to get it ready in time for the inauguration, and of course, so I've got I had the whole script ready for ages, and but then, of course, while I'm making it, while I'm animating it, the January 6th attack on the Capitol happens. And I'm just like, oh my God, like you could not write this. Literally, there have been screenwriters who have said that the amount of hoops that they have to jump through in order to get their characters to be able to break into somewhere as secure as the Capitol building. And they just watched people just walk in and they're just like, oh my God. So like I was like, well, I mean, I can't not include this, like I can't.
Listen, I always find it interesting to meet someone who is as experienced with history as yourself, just because like I myself is something being Greek. I'm like, there's a lot of history that I'm like, hey, I'm not that big of a fan of reading. So just tell me a story. Right. But there's, listen, don't even start me with that. But the funny thing is, like with regards to the presidents, is that a little fact that people know about is that every president can write a letter to the incoming president, and then it becomes public record.
Yeah.
Right. And one of the things was that the old George Bush, the dad, his letter to Bill Clinton was actually a great letter, whereas Bill Clinton's letter to his son, George Bush, was horrifically bad, which is just kind of a screw you kind of thing. But I'm like, and then you hear about stories where it's like Johnson had to literally tell his tailor, be like, hey, make the crotch bigger because I got a big wiener. And you're going, that's a great part of history that you only find out now, but it's a great... it's true, Atlas.
Johnson was a character and a half.
Such a character.
Because
just having meetings while you're on the can.
Or like there's a recording of a phone call of him where he's sitting there and he's like, I got my hand on my dick here, or so, it was something to that effect, where you're just like, I mean, obviously, totes inappropriate there, BJ.
It's a little Louis C.K. kind of, hey, do you mind? I'm just gonna hold my dick here, and you're like, hey man, I know you're the president, but not cool.
Yeah, he's from Texas, but still, I mean, it's part of history, and it's, but there's so much to kind of take out of the American presidents. But so back to the original question. What's my process? I do try to remain as balanced as I can.
Good.
One of my things that I try to do as much as possible is I try to keep things as chronological as possible.
Oh, that's nice.
Because so often you'll get history documentaries that go back and forth, and they're like, and then this happened, but this was actually because this happened, and and it like goes back and forth.
It's like a How I Met Your Mother episode.
Yeah. And it like requires prior knowledge. So I try to write my videos so that it could be hopefully accessible to someone who knows nothing about it, or base level. And at the same time, someone who knows loads about it, he'll be
Will
sitting
still
there
be-
going, "Oh my god, I recognize. See that little detail in the corner? He's got the plane. Oh my god, like there'll be little random details where people will be looking out for, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, he got the little bear mascot of the 1980s, the 1980 Moscow Olympics." Kind of things like that, where they're like, I understood that reference.
That's pretty
There's,
awesome.
there's tons of Easter eggs like that. So yeah, so like I try to keep it light where I can, but then also on the bits that are not so light, I do try to kind of pay it as much respect as I can. Like I mean, I did a video during the summer about the civil rights movement in America, and it's probably one of the darkest videos that I've made, and it brought me to a very dark place. I mean, I don't know how light and easy this podcast is supposed to be, but here I am talking about this.
Whatever.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it brought me to a really dark place because it was just so depressing, and it's because and one of the reasons why I wanted to make that video was because so often people's kind of general overview of that time period is Rosa Parks sat in a bus, and then Martin Luther King gave a speech about having a dream, and then they got the vote, and then yay, and that was it.
That's pretty much what it is in the U.S. Yeah,
And it's
really sad.
Oh, like you just read, and it's just like riot after riot, and police opening or setting dogs on children and hoses and
pouring bleach into pools because you shouldn't be in there. You're like, this is crazy.
And the murders and the atrocities,
the lynchings, like the. I talked about this in another episode, but like the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre, didn't even know it existed until I was an adult.
Until you saw Watchmen,
Yeah.
And like all of that, and like when you hear to use the trigger word now, when you hear about critical race theory kind of being done away with, and you're just like, oh my god, how can you ignore this? You can't ignore, like, this is part of, and this is here we go. You got John going on a rant now, because this is the thing, is that even if you compare kind of United States to Canada, where even though Canada's relationship with the Aboriginal people is not perfect, absolutely not,
a little less than not perfect,
but Canada very much acknowledges that and is like, yes, we are where we are because of all of this. Let us move forward together. And it's not perfect, and it's but and same with Germany after World War II, where they were like, yeah, this is terrible and we have messed up. And Germany from that has become such a strong and powerful and confident country, with a sense of, we know how bad things can get. We know, like, Nazi flags are illegal in Germany. You're not
100%.
So much so that the band Kiss, their logo is different in Germany because the SS in Kiss looks too similar to the SS. But they are a country that has dealt with their baggage, who has dealt with the terrible atrocities that they as a people committed or at least oversaw. And they're like, yeah, this, we can't do this again. We can't let this happen again. America hasn't done that yet. They, as much as they kind of want to think that they've done it, they haven't done it yet. And some people have, yes, but collectively as a nation, and particularly the former Confederate states, have not acknowledged it properly yet. It's kind of a, slavery's over, get over it. Let's all move on. It's like, no, but we have to move on together, because you can't move on apart, and that's the sad thing. And I find that the two countries who I hear making the most Nazi Germany jokes are the United States and Britain. And Britain is another England in particular. So England in particular,
Yeah.
another country that has dealt with its past very clumsily and has not always acknowledged a lot of the shit that it has done in the past.
Fair.
And so I often get annoyed when I hear Americans and British and anybody in general actually taking the cheap shots at haha Nazi Germany jokes, because it's like, no, Germany's actually moved on beyond that. You know, Germany has
Drastically, really.
drastically moved beyond. I mean, yeah, you got scumbag neo-Nazis, but you know, but it's you know, and it's just a thing of sort out your own country, because there's a lot more neo-Nazis in England and the States than there
US.
are in Germany, you know?
Yeah. Well, that's the funny thing, is that Germany has realized the empowerment you receive by admitting fault and trying to recover is drastically superior to trying to manipulate how things are remembered.
Yeah.
And I understand it, because it's hard. And this is the funny thing, is like, I've grown to a point, and especially during the pandemic, where it's been more introspective growth. Atlas doesn't believe me for this. He thinks I'm a horrible person. But it's the whole idea where it's like, listen, okay, I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. Let's move forward. Like, acknowledging you're wrong has such an empowering feeling, in that you don't have to, because it literally will weigh just in the back of your mind constantly. You will lose sleep over for no reason, where you're just going, you know what, that was really shitty of me.
Yeah.
Because now I can say, hey, I've acknowledged I was wrong. Now I can try and do better, and everyone will see that I'm doing better if I make sure to act better. Yeah. And that's a fair and valid point. I think it's reasonable, and I appreciate that.
It's one of my biggest character flaws, I think, is this like almost primordial need to want to be correct about stuff.
Sure.
And I think it's a very American frame of mind for the most part.
You know what?
It's this kind of thing.
Yes,
like,
it is, but it's also a youth thing too. Like, when you're young, you're told you have to be right. You have to be number one. You have to, like, all those things are driving factors to make you the best you could possibly be. But when you're older, at least for myself, I found where it's going, hey, guess what? I'm not going to be an astronaut, man. And you know what? I never really wanted to be one, so that's fine. I'm okay with that. So, like, I have a friend who literally works at a nuclear power plant, and he's a professional engineer now, so he's got the little ring and everything, and I'm like, cool, man. I have the utmost respect for him. But at the same time, I'm like, yeah, but I could punch you and you'll be brain dead for the rest of your life. We both have our strengths. Get over it. It doesn't make a difference to me, because I'd rather us be friends and maybe learn from each other. I think that's a better solution. But, you know, he's French.
That's one of the cool things about doing this show with Dino, is he's constantly like putting me in line with stuff like that.
Well, no, but this is the funny thing, is like the whole big thing that we try and do, John, is give a generational perspective how different it is, right?
Yes.
For myself, like, so I'm the youngest of 5, and my dad was the youngest of 9.
Oh, wow.
So we both have a very generationally displaced moral compass. It's very peculiar, right? So, like, I saved myself for marriage, right? But at the same time, it's like my dad, my oldest brother, is a bastard. But then they got married and had 4 more kids, and you're going, it's a different life that you realize like, later on, things are different, right? So, but then you kind of realize, you're going, hey man, we're all just trying to do the best we can. Well, and that's actually just fine. Just don't be a piece of garbage, and, you know, give it a good try. That's, you know, that's okay. And it's different. Whereas, you know, I know, like, for me, I used to be a financial planner. As you can tell by my background and my shirt, I'm not so serious anymore. That's not my thing. I'm like, I've chosen not to be, right? And that's why, like, looking at history, you're going, there's so much of a wealth of knowledge and experience that a lot of people will just glance over, and just, oh yeah, there's some stuff that happened back in, you know, 1940 to 45. There were some things, but we're not going to talk about it. You're like, how about this? Let's read about it and actually get some real information. You know, so we don't screw it up again.
well, the thing. So I go into schools, and I talk about history with kids, you know, and And something that I often kind of try to, it depends on the age group and whatnot, but something that I always try to remind them and kind of bring home is that they're all just people. When we're reading about history, it's all people. And this is the line that I always bring it back to is George Washington throughout his life would have needed to go to the toilet.
Right.
Adolf Hitler would have needed to go to the toilet. Joseph Stalin would have needed to go to the toilet. Marie Curie would have needed to go to the toilet. Genghis Khan would have needed to go to the toilet.
But Kim Jong-un does not go to the toilet. And that's the truth of history. You're absolutely right. That's great.
And just every single person, they all had those fundamental, Maslow's needs or Laszlo. And was Maslow or Laszlo? Oh, I can't think.
Laszlo.
Yeah, Laszlo, yes.
I think it's Laszlo.
Yeah, it's one of them anyway.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Yeah, that sounds right.
Yeah, Laszlo, there we go.
Either one, we're smart. That's
exactly.
It's funny you mentioned the thing about Hitler and using the bathroom, because he was apparently on so much meth that he was constipated, and they needed to give him laxatives.
And look what constipation did to him. Made him very angry.
You've seen Downfall, you know what's up.
I watched Falling Down this morning. I'll tell you that right now. And I'm watching the whole thing going, oh, I get it. I totally get it.
Which is Falling Down again?
Michael Douglas, where he's got the buzz cut and he's walking through LA.
Yes.
It just came out on Netflix here.
Yeah, I watched that for the first time earlier in the year. And oh my God, I had to laugh. Because
nothing's changed. It's exactly the same.
But it's so funny watching it because you're like, this movie is just white male privilege, toxic masculinity, the movie.
Yes.
And it's just
that's a lot of movies, to be fair.
It is. But just that in particular, where he's walking in, it's almost so stereotypical, of walking into of the stores. What country are you from, and why don't you speak English, and all this kind of. And he's just getting madder and madder, and constantly getting away with his crimes until spoilers, the very end. Fair enough, but still, I just find it really interesting to watch it from a 21st century perspective. Whereas I'd imagine. I'm not sure how it would have went down in the early 90s, but I would imagine it was more of he's just had a bad day. He's this anti-hero, and it's no, he's straight up the villain in his own story.
This is the funny thing is, I was sitting down watching it with my wife, who's Asian, and especially there's been a campaign over the last couple of years where there's been some Asian hate and stuff like that, and everyone's like, listen, these are issues, reasonable to talk about. And that scenario where he starts arguing with the guy, he's like, well, you can come to my country and take our money, but you can't learn our language. And I'm like, and she was like, well, he's just a racist. I'm like, so the interesting part is you got to figure out what's happening, because I've heard those statements in many countries, different people dealing with them. And the fact is that in Japan, if you don't know Japanese, you cannot get citizenship. That's the first question. Are you fluent in Japanese? No? Then why are you applying to be a citizen?
Yeah.
Boom, you're cut off at the legs. And I go, let's look back. I'm like, now his delivery, racist. But you got to remember, I'm like, there's a lot more happening. And this is where I'm like, I love to get into the real nitty gritty of things. Because then you start to realize you're going, hey, I think a lot of us are assholes and we don't even realize it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, let's just calm down, everybody.
well, that's true, and that is an interesting question, because should language be a barrier of citizenship? And that is an interesting one, because it's what language, particularly with America, with so many languages are spoken, it is an interesting one.
Well, look, then you have. I'm not sure how. I think you would probably know about this, but there's city or villages in Argentina that speak German fluently. Everyone. There's no Spanish speakers in the town. You're going, so guys, we got to talk about some stuff here. This is a little
Yeah.
bit right?
Ich weiß es nicht. Ich weiß es nicht.
Right? And
In
that's-
Japan's case, with the like, you have to know Japanese to be a citizen. That makes a lot of sense just for Japan as a country, because they were incredibly xenophobic from like the Sengoku Jidai up until
so
Matthew
is
Perry
China.
was like, knock, knock, motherfucker, let us in.
But look, that's the thing is, so was China throughout history. And the
Mhm.
fact was that we've known, because of history and how it's proven, is that every time a country has closed its borders, it has resulted in, number one, atrocities. Number
Mhm.
two is them not keeping up with the
Yep.
rest of the world. And
Yep.
number three is that, if anything, it was counterproductive for people's value of themselves and their environment.
Yeah.
And that's, and you know what? You're like, that's a hard pill to swallow, because so many places actively practice that
Mhm.
idea of keeping foreigners out and protecting what's ours. When the fact is, our lines are made up. That thing that you call a passport is because somebody had a bee in their bonnet and didn't want people to travel freely. Listen, the whole structure is falling apart, and we get to watch it in the 21st century. It's very exciting.
Do you know what I find really fascinating was I think it was on an episode of QA, and they were talking about technology in China
Yeah.
and how because China didn't develop glass, because they had gone all in ceramics, then then they just didn't unlock that stream of the technology chart. And because of that, they missed out on lenses, and because of that, they missed out on a lot of scientific discovery that
Huge.
ultimately put them behind technologically for centuries.
Mathematics, physics, astronomy, all those things that are linked together. Lenses, huge part. You're absolutely right. I remember that episode. That's great.
I found it fascinating, just this idea of, because you developed one thing, then you didn't see the need to develop another thing. But because you didn't develop that other thing, down the road, that would come back to bite you in the ass.
Yeah.
So I wonder, is there anything in our world which we've gone all in on that we haven't bothered exploring something else, which could be like
I believe the answer you're looking for is capitalism.
True. But like, so it's the story about the guy who brought bendable glass to Caesar, and Caesar said, "Does anyone else know this technique? Does your assistant or anything?" He said, "No, only me." Good. Death. Why? Because it was going to affect the bronze market so drastically. And there's suspicion of the whole idea that it was maybe the first plastic or something, some sort of an acrylic function. They weren't, but it dropped it on the ground, it bent, he unbent it, and it showed it was perfectly fine, right? And he was put to death for it. The other thing is, and this is a hot topic I've been doing research on, is that the limestone on the outside of the Great Pyramids, there's evidence from the 70s that it's poured and not carved. And the fact is, the book that came out from the 70s, I believe is an English guy.
Yeah.
And I see you having a boner over there, so I love it.
Yeah.
But he goes, he released this, and the head Egyptologist in Egypt is like, no, that's just false. And everyone's like, oh, okay. And he's like, no, this is the science behind it. This is the equation I use. This is the test. It proves it's exactly the same. What's going on? You're going, listen, and there's now a rediscovery of certain cements used in Rome that are antimicrobial and now being used in hospitals and stuff like that. You're going, ta-da! We forgot about this because we're idiots.
So, it was the Dark Ages. So there's a documentary that my mother-in-law sent me and my wife. She was like, "You have to watch this. It's amazing." It was a 3-hour-long YouTube documentary.
That's a lot.
And okay, so and it was this guy. I think I'm wanting to say he was Albanian, but he was somewhere down in that direction.
Somewhere that wasn't a country 50 years ago. Let's say that.
Yes. Albania's been a country for ages, actually.
Listen, I'm Greek, not really, but no, sorry, that's a little bit racist. I'm just kidding. To Albania.
It's from somewhere down there anyway. And so the first half hour of the documentary is him kind of basically going, okay, so this is what, first of all, I'm not going to say it's alien, so don't worry about that. I was like, all right, okay. And then so the first half hour is him talking about why this is credible, why all of the other theories are wrong, and why the poured cement theory works, and why, and all this.
Proven to work. Like it just. Yeah.
And then the next 2 hours is wonderfully animated. They've got these great 3D animations showing the process. With that in mind of that the pyramids are poured. Let's see what that would look like, and it explains so much. It explains these anomalies, these random pieces of wood sticking out of rocks.
We may have seen the same thing. Was it the platform? Then they go up, they build it, and then they pour, and then they set the next one. Okay,
pull it out.
Yeah. Okay.
But then, so you get to the end of those 2 hours, and you're like, I'm convinced. I'm pretty good now. There was a big, speaking of lenses, there was a giant sun lens that they used to melt
rock, yes,
marble, which I was a little bit more okay. Maybe if you reproduce that in real life, I would be a little bit more. But that aside, the poured concrete. Okay, I'm buying this. And then, spoilers for this video, by the way. Oh God! So the last half hour. So you're sitting there going, "Wow, I'm convinced this was really good. Where's he going to go with this from now on?" And so he's like, "So the Egyptians, they created this technology, but of course they had to protect this technology, which is why the Romans were so obsessed with capturing Egypt." It's like, all right, okay. But the Egyptians also built ships, and they went across the ocean, the Atlantic Ocean, and they stopped in Mexico and built the pyramids there. And then they went to the other side of Mexico and built more ships, and they went down to possibly Easter Island and built them too. And then
it only stands to reason
over to Australia and Cambodia, and they basically any of the big impressive stuff around the world, the Egyptians built it. And it's just like, oh guys, he's jumped the shark. We're so close. But then the Romans then did capture Egypt, as we know from history.
Oh my God.
And they captured the technology and they brought it back to Rome. I was like, okay, guys, you didn't need to explain the construction of Rome, but it was poured concrete. Okay. And then goes into the dark, and these secrets were kept. I was like, oh no, he's not going there. And then they built the cathedrals. I was like, no. The Masons. No, he did it.
And then aliens showed up, and
he kept the aliens out of it at least. But oh my God, he went full Freemason. Oh, guys, you were doing so well.
Listen, this is where I laugh my ass off, because you're standing there going, okay, this is real information and scientifically based. And then you have somebody go, and did you know? And you're going, crap.
Nope, just dude.
It's like the idea when someone says, hey, just trust me, and you're going, immediately, zero trust, stop what you're doing, just get out. I do not trust you.
This is the thing. The inner argument of the poured concrete, I'm still on board with. Yep. Like this is the thing, and this is something that I think a lot of people tend to do, and I've seen this with, like, say, my president's video, where they get to the Trump bit at the end, which isn't aligned with their politics, so they're like, oh well, I can't trust the rest of this video whatsoever, right. So I'm not going to bother. And it's like, why throw the baby out with the bathwater? And now, that being said, all the Trump stuff is trustworthy. So just saying, I mean, yes, it is left leaning,
sure,
but there's still
that doesn't make it false. Those are two different things.
And so, and so with that in mind, I'm like, no, I'm still pretty sold on the poured concrete thing, because he explains it so well, and it makes more sense than all of the other theories.
Yes.
But then he just jumps,
drastically, yeah.
but then he just shits the bed at the end and like, no,
Oh.
come on.
So this is
Oh,
the
he
one-
tried.
he was successful, and then he's like, what is this, success? Paf, I don't need success. I have theories to share, right?
Well, like this,
Oh
this
my
is what I
God.
love about all of the whole things of like aliens built the pyramids and stuff. There's like, because look, there's pyramids in Mexico and there's pyramids in Cambodia and like there's all of these ancient pyramids. Like how, like we have to explain that in some way. It's like, yeah, because pyramids don't fall over. Like it's literally they don't fall over. So where are they gonna go?
It's almost racist a little bit, where they're like, okay,
Oh, it's completely racist. No, that's the other side of it. Of oh well, I mean, they couldn't have possibly had the technology and wherewithal to do it, so it must have been aliens because only white people are good at building stuff. Even though we collectively forgot how to do that shit for about 500 years during the Dark Ages and had to rediscover it by reverse engineering Roman shit.
And doing it poorly, let's be honest.
Yeah, reverse engineering Roman shit, which was based on Greek shit. There you go, bringing it back to Greek.
Well, this is
full circle.
Full circle. There's I think
which in fairness was probably based on shit from the Middle East. So hey, there you go.
Listen, we conquered it all. It's fine. But we did it right. We gave you democracy, and everyone ruined it. It's not our fault. But
Oh my God.
Tell that to the Spartans.
Well, those guys a little bit too close. Anyways, there's a TikTok where a lady's like, "Hey, tell me something that people think is in the Bible but isn't in the Bible," and it's a woman comes on and goes, "White people." Like, yeah, yes! That's it. They weren't there, and like that's so the funny part is. And I remember watching it. It's so good. Yeah, I saw that. And I was like, "Ooh, that bites! That bites hard, lady." But like in Latin America, there's a lot of pyramids that are there, and they'll have giant pools that they refer to as reflecting pools. And the white guy who was there touring it goes, "Oh, so like people would just like meditate?" He goes, "No, it's used for reflection." Why? He goes, "Yeah, like internal." He goes, "No, the stars. Don't look up, look down. It's easier." And everyone's saying, going, "Oh, that's genius." And you're like, yeah, maybe people were smarter back in the day, guy. They figured it out, and we're just too dumb to say, I just use it introspectively to reflect. You're like, no, it's a literal reflection of what's up there. That's how we do it.
Well, because it's funny, because that's actually something whenever I'm chatting about Irish history that I use that comparison, the way that we look at the way the pyramids were built. And some people are like, well, I don't know how ancient people could have done it, so it must have been aliens. There's actually a similar thing in Ireland where 2,500 years ago, there were the kind of first kind of early Celtic cultures in Ireland. And they were stumbling upon all of these already ancient tombs. These were like, so from now, they're like 5,000 years old. So the same distance in time between us and them is between them and the ancient megalithic Stone Age people of Ireland.
Yeah.
And they were finding all of these ancient tombs and old portal dolmens of these giant stones on top of other things. And they were like, we have no idea how you could have possibly built this. I don't know how to move these huge stones. You don't know how to build these huge stones. It must have been giants. It must have been fairies. It must have been magic. And so all of Celtic mythology came out of trying to explain where all this mad shit came from that Stone Age people built.
Well, that's the funny part, is like so much has been attributed to just, let's see what happens. And you're going, no, it's literally, there's a guy who's been just railroaded on the internet where he just uses planks and levers and he moves massive stones. And it's literally just himself recorded the whole time, moving stuff like things that would be reminiscent of an Easter Island sized block, moving it step by step. And you're going, this is the thing is, it's actually just about being creative enough and experimenting that'll help you figure out, which is the scientific method. You're saying, listen, we got to get that from that to there.
Yeah.
All right, let's try and figure it out. Okay, so what options do we have? What do we know? How do we learn? Let's try it. And you're like, that is the scientific method. The scientific method isn't, hey, I'm going to pay you to say this stuff. Go say it. And you're like, no, that's not science. No, don't do that, guys. Don't do that.
I mean, I built a miniature stone circle earlier last year.
Oh, really?
I have a big field out the front of my new house, and I had a whole pile of old stone because we knocked down one of the walls, and so we had all this old stone. And I was like, I'm going to build a stone circle, and it's going to have gaps in it for the sunrise of the equinoxes and the solstices. And it's cool. Awesome. It's not finished yet, but I'm getting there. But even moving those rocks, they like, and some of them were like this. The biggest one was probably bigger than the size of my torso.
All right.
And moving those rocks from point A to point B, and having to move all of those rocks from point A to point B, was a combination of there were some that I just filled up a wheelbarrow and bringing it down, and this was just me, and so getting them off the ground into the wheelbarrow was a job in itself. But then you had some stones, like the one the size of my torso, which I couldn't even get off the ground.
Right.
But I had a wheel jack. So I was able to go over that and pivot that onto the wheel jack and wheel it back, and away we go. So, like, obviously they didn't necessarily have a wheel jack but
something.
But you work things out. And this is the thing. And going back to that same thing of, everybody in history needed to go to the toilet. There were geniuses throughout history. We tend to completely write off Stone Age people as a bunch of cavemen. But they were geniuses who worked out how to generate fire, who worked out how the year worked, and to realize that there's 365 roughly days as it takes the sun to go around, and as it gets lower in the sky, it'll sit there for 3-ish days, and then it'll begin to rise again. And all of this kind of, do you know what? We're going to build an entire building. So there's a building, one of those ancient megalithic tombs in Ireland. It's called Newgrange. And on the winter solstice, there's the doorway that leads into it. And then there's a little separate box above the doorway. And on the winter solstice, the sun shines directly down that little box and lights up the entire tunnel. It's friggin' magic.
Yeah.
And that was built 5,000 years ago,
Yeah. I heard about that. So it's only on the solstice where you can actually clearly see the entire room, right?
Yeah, I mean, they have electrical lights in
obviously,
there now,
but that's this is the funny thing, is that the lunar calendar is drastically more accurate than the calendar, the Gregorian calendar that everyone uses. And you're going, so we changed this because some pompous jerk who wanted to change the months. Yeah, okay, well, fuck that guy. How about that? How about that? I'm going back to the lunar calendar. Just like it's very funny though, right? It's a very different perspective. What's up, Alex?
All right. So first, John, wanted to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
And I'm sorry for all the technical difficulties. We're going to ask you one more question here in a bit, but first, do you want to plug your stuff for everybody?
Yes, absolutely. You can find me at John D Ruddy at Facebook, Instagram, of course, YouTube, Twitter. Just look up John D Ruddy, you'll get me. And I'm on Patreon too, patreon.com/John D Ruddy. And also, I have a podcast which is on hiatus at the moment, but the episodes are still up. It's called Where Many Have Gone Before, which is me watching Star Trek for the very first time. So if any of you are Star Trek fans right here, Dino, you seem to be.
I'm a nerd.
So I'll have to have you on as a guest at some point. I'm halfway through season 2 of the original series, so I'm still early days yet. But
there's so much you have to see. My friend.
I'm really looking forward to Next Generation.
And you know what? This is the thing, is specifically with Next Generation, was that there was such a whole issue with Patrick Stewart, but Patrick Stewart, seeing him act, for myself, really brought me into the idea of theater and really expressing yourself with words.
So
So he's a king among men, and I'm like,
yes.
the problem is that you have. Sorry, Alice, I know we got to wrap it up. I'm sorry, just quickly. Is one of the things is that like guys like Patrick Stewart and like Ian McKellen, who are
Yeah.
magnificent,
Yeah.
are also around the same age as someone like John Lithgow. John
Yeah.
Lithgow is like a hidden secret of that age group. But you're
Mhm.
like, yeah, but he can't compete with those guys. It's like going up against Lawrence of Arabia. You're like, it's not gonna work, man.
John Lithgow played a very good Winston Churchill in The Crown.
He did. I
He was a
remember.
very
Like,
good
he's
Winston
very
Churchill.
talented, but he is not like. Listen,
No.
the guy made bank. He's good. So he's like, no, it's just for fun, right? Like,
Yeah.
anyways, yeah. So last question here was.
Well, wait, Dino, you got to plug us too and the show.
I always forget. I just assume if they're watching us, they already know where we are. I'm Dino
Oh my God.
Marvel. It's sorry. I don't know. It's very awkward not seeing your facial expressions, Atlas.
I'm sorry.
No, it's not.
It'll be fixed next week.
I'm a putz. But yeah, Dino the Genetic Marvel. You can find me everywhere. And as well, I'm on the Eargasm Network, and DNT Network is also in effect. So it's where I'm doing a lot of my podcasting and stuff with regards to Sports Balls, which is a bunch of comedians talking about sports that we are completely unqualified to talk about. And then Idiot Says What, which is mostly us talking with... yeah, exactly. You know what the funny thing is? Everyone comments that and goes, "What?" And I'm like, "What do you mean what? I just explained what." And then I'm like, "Oh, it's the sorry, my bad. Yeah. I'm an idiot." So hence the name. But the best part is it's me and Tim Loss talking about random topics and stuff. But keep an eye out on my social media because I do post the promos there, and that way you can tune in live and scream at us over the internet. Because realistically, therapy is expensive. Atlas, off to you, sir.
All right, you can follow me at Atlas Novak on Twitter or Instagram. You can follow my other podcast at Nexus at Night, which is about a trading card game, in those same places. And then you can follow us at Generation Dan on Twitter. All right, John, final question for you. What is the weirdest thing that has happened to you while making a video?
Probably the weirdest thing that ever happened to me was killing Hitler.
What?
So
we ain't finishing early. That's for sure. Let's go.
So I did. You know, I made the video of World War II, and so naturally, part of that story was the death of Hitler.
Right.
And I got to that part, and I was like, "How am I actually going to draw this? What am I going to do?" Because it's like that. It's dark, and it's graphic, and so I did an illustration. Nobody has ever seen this, but I did an illustration of Hitler and Eva Braun in their bunker, and you know, and I was just like, I can't use this. It's too much. I was like, I mean, fuck Hitler, but like, this is too much. And so ultimately, I did a much more tasteful. It's a picture of a guard standing outside of a big door, and then you see bang showing up, and he's like, "Mein Führer," and that was it. But yeah, no, that was just that moment where I had drawn a picture, finished a picture, and just sat back and looked at it, and was just like, "Shit, I can't use this." Oh my god,
that's awesome.
So there you go.
Oh my god! I mean, if you really want, like, this is probably a big ask. Do you want to send it to us and we'll put it up in here?
Oh,
no. Okay, worth a shot. Worth a shot.
I'm not even sure if I scanned it, so I don't even think there's a digital form. It is in my archive of illustrations in a literal folder in a filing cabinet, and yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, so, no, that's probably for the best. Let's be honest.
Yeah, worth a shot.
I don't even think I've seen that picture since 2014. So I might have to go back and look at it at some point. And yeah.
Oh, this has been a good conversation.
Yeah,
All
it's
right,
been a lot
well-
of fun. I've really enjoyed this. Thank you so much.
Yeah, we'll definitely have you back when my internet is actually working. And Caleb's here. So,
Yeah, and we're missing something. It's fantastic.
thanks everybody for listening. Enjoy your week, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everyone.
Bye.